Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jew Folk. This week I talk with Carli Poisson and Aaron Josephs, who are the Moishe House Pod in the Longfellow neighborhood of Minneapolis. We talk about why starting the pod was right for them, deepening their connection to the Twin Cities Jewish community, and a possible rivalry with the other Moishe Pod in Minneapolis on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Carli Poisson and Aaron Josephs, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So you two are the Moishe House Pod, or I suppose Moishe Pod. Does the house
Moishe Pod.
does the house stay with it?
No, but
Okay.
sometimes, because Moishe House is the name of the organization.
Right.
So it's a Moishe Pod by Moishe House. Moishe Pod, powered by Moishe House.
Yeah.
That's excellent branding. Well, you are the Moishe Pod powered by Moishe House in the Longfellow area of Minneapolis. So I guess for starters, welcome to town.
Thank you.
Awesome.
How long have you been doing the Moishe Pod, thing? You're the first pod in this neighborhood, right?
Yes. So there used to be a Moishe House in Minneapolis, but that disbanded last year. And so they were kind of, there's a great community here, obviously, and they want something to pick up where the house kind of left off. And so instead of creating another house, they decided to form two pods kind of on the western and eastern side of the neighborhood. And so that's where we formed the eastern side, Longfellow, in October. So we've only been around for a couple months now.
Yep.
So what was it that brought you to the Twin Cities?
So I came here first back in 2018 when I graduated from our undergrad, Wesleyan University in Connecticut.
Okay.
I came out here for my PhD program in neuroscience at the U. So I've lived out in St. Paul up until this summer when I finally trekked across the river and moved out here. And Aaron joined me at great time, January 2020.
The end of January 2020, which was a hard time to move across the country. That has been part of what excited us about Moishe House, is making some more connections, which was obviously hard to do after moving here right at the beginning of a pandemic. So that's part of, that's why I moved out here, is to be here with Carli, and partially my job allowed me to move out here. Yeah, that takes us to the beginning of the pandemic, and then
right in the nick of time to get here.
Yep.
So you mentioned you went to school in Connecticut. Are you both from the East Coast then?
We're both from the New England area, although I was born in Boston. I grew up since I was pretty young in North Carolina, so still East Coast.
But you have connections to the Midwest. Yeah,
I went to camp growing up at Osrui over in Wisconsin.
Oh, absolutely, sure. We have a lot of Osrui campers in our area.
Yeah.
So we very very familiar with it. So how did you end up going to Osrui, being from the East Coast? 'Cause there's obviously other URJ camps that are probably more convenient to you.
There's one in North Carolina.
Okay.
The reason I ended up at Osrui is my best friend from home was actually born in Wisconsin. And so he had the Osrui connection. His older sister, both of his older sisters went to Osrui, and when he wanted to go to camp, that's where he wanted to go. And growing up when I was little, I never wanted to go to camp. So he was already going and established by the time I decided I was ready to try a camp. And I wanted to go to one that I knew someone at, although I ended up going a different time than him. So I didn't know anyone while I was there. But that is why I picked a camp halfway across the country.
Okay, well, that seems reasonable. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess your intentions were right. So, okay, so you both have been here for a little while. I suppose I should have asked that before we started. I sort of thought that you were a recent arrivals to the Twin Cities and then jumped in with the Moishe Pod right away to sort of help meet people, but you've both been here for a little while now. Why was now the time that you had wanted to look into starting up or being part of the Moishe House family?
Like I said, moving right at the beginning of the pandemic, it was obviously pretty hard to, form connections. And Carli and I especially wanted to like deepen our connection to the Jewish community. And hadn't really done that, although we had been here for a while, largely because of the pandemic, making it difficult. And then I was in Chicago visiting some friends, and I have a friend who actually works for Moishe House, and she was like, "Oh, I can connect you. I'm pretty sure there's a Moishe House in the Twin Cities. Maybe you could go to some of their events." And then that day, she was actually going out to lunch with the community organizer for the Midwest Houses and Pods, who was talking about how they really wanted to open 2 pods in Minneapolis. And we were like, that sounds great to us. That sounds like an awesome opportunity. That sounds like so much fun. So it was really, when we heard about it, kind of coincided with when we were looking to deepen our connection to the Jewish community in the Twin Cities, and also, feeling more like it was possible to do that because we felt like we could open things up a little bit more and start seeing people. We first heard about Moishe House over the summer, so it took a few months before we actually opened.
Yeah, and like both of us being transplants here, there's the saying about Minnesotans have all the friends they need. So, but so a lot of my friends were from my PhD program, which I knew like one other Jewish person in the program, and they were also from away. So, and with the pandemic, it made it kind of hard to find and put down roots in the area, and so hearing about Moishe House was like, oh wow, this sounds like a really great fit for us.
Well, and you'd obviously been here a little bit longer, Carli, because of school, but it's not like you were blessed with all kinds of time on your hands either as a PhD student, right?
Yeah, famously PhDs just lounge around and socialize. Yeah.
God, I should have gone back to school then. Why didn't anybody tell me? So I guess then either one of you hadn't been to a Moishe House program or anything while the house was up and running here.
No, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's it like trying to get, obviously there is, with the caveat of there is another pod in Minneapolis, but trying to get this new one up and running, what's that been like over these first few months?
Yeah, I think we sort of predicted this to some extent in advance, but I think it's been at first really, really difficult to just like find inns, because not being from the area and not knowing really any Jews in the area, really not knowing like even how to find out who is in the Jewish community, like how to find out kind of how the Jewish community works in the area. So it was difficult. And then when we started to, over time, kind of suss out like what the different organizations are, who's in what, and actually like get to meet with some people, and like got connected with the other pod, got connected with a couple people who were in the house that closed down. got
You
connected
guys.
with you guys.
Yeah.
And other organizations, as we started to understand what the different organizations were, that sort of, naturally led to us meeting or connecting with other Jews. And that's sort of how we've now started to be able to, find people that are excited about joining our community that we're forming.
Yeah, and at the same time also trying to be really cognizant and keep an eye on the pandemic. And so, trying to create space for people to be together in person if people feel safe for that. We have a bunch of safety measures like vaccination and stuff like that for our events. But, keeping an eye on things and acknowledging that a lot of people are kind of burnt out from like Zoom seminars and stuff. So that's been another little bit of a challenge to sort of like, how can we do this safely with the people that we meet as well? So
because it's simultaneously a hard time to get someone to be excited about a Zoom event and a hard time to get someone to feel super safe coming to an event with people they don't know. So yeah, kind of finding that balance.
That's, very true. Cause like, I know I can speak to what our family has been doing in terms of COVID safety, and there, are some other people who might trust what they're doing, but you get out into the open with, at a restaurant or a bar with a whole lot of other people who maybe don't really care. And it becomes tough to, really feel comfortable getting out and doing those things.
Right.
So with all that in mind, what kind of activities have you been trying to plan in the sort of early days, which again, also particularly hard to get this kind of thing up and running, is just coming into, the super warm Minnesota winter.
Yeah, our first event was an outdoor event. So we just got the tail end of like October warmth. So that was nice.
Yeah.
And we've tried to do some things that, can be spread out, but not necessarily outdoors. So we're doing a field trip to the Como Conservatory and Zoo.
Oh, nice.
So, that's a big area, and it's, masks required and stuff like that. So that's some of the stuff, but then
we've also tried to do, very casual stuff that feels like easy to go to. Like we have done a showing of a movie. We got a projector screen and like just had snacks and drinks and showed a movie. And we're going to be showing another movie this upcoming month, Shiva Baby. So we've done that. We've done Shabbat dinners. We've gone to a brewery. So kind of a wide variety. We've also done an event pairing with the other Moishe Pod.
Okay.
So that was nice as well. We'll definitely have other collaborations with them in the future. So,
and we've tried to, with some of those things, like with the screening of Shiva Baby, we have like a virtual option so people can tune in to join us if they don't feel comfortable in person, because we also cap our in-person events.
Sure.
And we're doing like so Moishe House is a really great organization for a number of reasons, one of which is they try to hit like all different aspects of being a young Jewish person in like your 20s and 30s. And so our events reflect that as well. So we have just things that are social, but we also have education-based and holiday-based and Tikkun Olam ones. So, healing the world. And so our Tikkun Olam event for this month is writing like messages to pediatrics patients through the World Pediatric Health Association. And that's something that, we're going to have stuff that, people can write things here with us, but also like, we'll have a Zoom event so people can like talk and chat while they also write, so we're trying to offer different levels and different ways to meet people and be involved.
Yeah.
So how much do these types of programming that you're coming up with now reflect each of you personally and what you look for out of your Judaic practice?
I think I think that's a really great question, because part of what's great about being a Moishe Pod is kind of you get to design your own Jewish community.
Right.
And that, of course, anytime you're doing event planning, that's part of the challenge, is like, how do you make it, something you and other people actually want to do, as opposed to, like, I don't know, feeling kind of obligatory. And I think that that's been partially a challenge, but in like a very exciting way. It's fun to find, I think, because personally, my Judaism has, growing up, been very about connection and community, and making, like I mentioned that I went to camp, making an event that feels like it feels to hang out with my camp friends is really hard to do, but also, when it is successful, feels very easy. Like, having a Shabbat dinner where we just light the candles and say some blessings and then sit around eating pizza. Like, something very casual that makes it feel easy to be Jewish with other people, is kind of how I have, I guess, brought my own connection to Judaism, which is very community-based, into our pod.
And I think Aaron and I also have kind of a love of learning and curiosity. So I was not raised Jewish, and I'm kind of on the conversion path. And so
excellent.
Yeah, that's it's been a really wonderful community for me as I've become an adult. And so I think a lot of our events also reflect that sort of like curiosity and learning, and also getting to know our community. And we also pitched our pod also based on a mutual love of the arts. So Aaron is really involved with theater and is taking fight choreography classes in the area and things like that.
Oh,
and,
very cool.
Yeah, so we hope to bring maybe pair with 6 Point Theater and sort of like do some joint activities that way, and like pair with folks who are involved in like the I know there are some people who do sort of DIY Judaica stuff, so bringing in that sort of like exploration and artsy side of our Judaism also to our pod
music and crafts and theater and all sorts of artistic expressions of people's personality and what's important to them. In this case, their Judaism, but other things as well.
So, Carli, were you sort of on the conversion track, as you say, prior to the forming of the pod, or did this? Okay, so you had sort of started down the road.
Yes, yeah. I just sort of ended up at a Shabbat at college. So I didn't say originally, but I'm from sort of rural northern Maine originally. Okay. So not a huge Jewish population out there. But I went to college, and I had a friend who just asked me to go to Shabbat with her, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna go. And then I just kept going, and Aaron and I met at the Jewish House on campus, and they asked me to like live in the house with them, and so that's just been a really important part of my like adult life and finding community. So I think this has been a really great way. Moishe House has been a really great way to further like explore that and and give back to the community that I feel like has given me a lot in my life.
And you mentioned sort of the DIY Judaism. I mean, that feels very much, at least in my understanding, of what Moishe House sort of is. There is sort of very much a DIY component to what the pods or houses do,
right?
In terms of program planning and that sort of thing.
Yeah, especially like it's targeted for people like who are out of college and trying to figure out like what the heck am
trying to figure out a lot of stuff.
What the heck am I doing with my life? Yeah, and so things that provide sort of laying roots and foundation for like, what do I want my adult Jewish life to look like? What do I want my connections to look like? I think Moishe House sort of tries to provide that foundation for people.
And I would think as you sort of going through this conversion process, I think this sort of helps a lot, I would think, in terms of you get to figure out, like, both for your, you guys as a pod, as a, Moishe Pod, but also you personally as somebody going through this, Carli, is that you can use, your personal to inform how you want the pod to look, and what you take from the pod to help inform your Jewish practice beyond this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a really great exploratory space, and has also like given us, I feel like you learn a lot about someone. So Aaron is my partner, and you learn a lot about someone by seeing how they interact with community too. Yes. And so I feel like just in all directions, it's been a really meaningful experience for me so far. And we've only just started, so
yeah.
Well, that is excellent. So you mentioned doing stuff with the other pod, and we've had Craig on the podcast. I don't know what is time anymore.
It's still March 2020,
right? Late summer, maybe early fall. We had him on. Is there competition between the two pods in terms of who can put on the better program?
At the end of the year, we have to fight, and only one pod remains.
Yeah.
No,
see, and this is why you're taking the fight choreography, so you can effectively get through that.
No, it's well, so the kind of house pod distinction. There used to be a house, and the difference there is that a house is, I think, 3 to 6 people, depending on the house, and a pod is specifically 2. And a house is going to be responsible for more events than a pod is. And so I think what it was kind of that one house for the entirety of the Twin Cities was kind of maxing out how much they could provide for their community, that 2 pods are able to provide, more opportunities or more events and more types of events, because there's people planning events like separately. So you're going to come up with different ideas. And I don't really feel like we've had any competition at all. There's definitely been, I know there was one month where just randomly, probably when were the High Holy Days? I'm trying to think.
They were September this year. They were really early.
So didn't interact with us with Moishe House, but there was one where we had 2 of our 3 events for the month on overlapping days by chance, and we were like, oh, we should talk about that in advance, so we don't do that. But there's not really any competition, because I think that's part of the goal was to have more opportunities for Moishe House style events, which can be so many different things.
And even geographically, we have some folks who have been coming to our events who live right over the river in St. Paul, and they don't have vehicles. So it's just also easier for them to get over here and hang out with us than to go to Harriet.
Right.
So yeah, I think just like between the 2 of us, just geographically, we offer different things, and program flavor wise, we offer different things.
Yeah.
And I think both of them just are in service of the greater Twin Cities metro area.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice of you not to trash Craig and Lee. I mean, you totally
They're
could.
so lovely. They're so lovely. And
they're going to be, I'm trying to set up like a rivalry here, right? But fine. You're not going to play along.
Well, I can't jeopardize getting Lee's matzo ball soup again.
Yeah. It was very good.
She made some for our Hanukkah event, and just, so good.
Okay. All right. Fine. Listen, for the matzo ball soup,
we'd risk it all.
I would play nice too for that. That's fair. I would do the same. Well, Carli and Aaron, last 2 questions, and we will let you go. First of all, what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
I love Passover.
I honestly, feel like Havdalah might be mine. Just
deep cut.
Deep cut.
And we haven't actually done like a Havdalah specific event yet.
I'm excited for Luminary Havdalah.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. That'll be great.
I just love kind of, that's another thing that came to me from camp, is it's so nicely done the way we do it at Osrui that became a real love of mine. So I'm going to say Havdalah. If you ask me a different day, I might have said Passover. But
no, that's totally cool. I got to tell you though, I don't know how many of the podcasts and, a few years of written articles, when this used to be a written article Q&A, I'm not sure anybody said Havdalah.
Right.
So, yeah, that's sort of part of what blew me away there. That was, hadn't heard that answer yet. That's pretty awesome. And what is your favorite Jewish food?
Lox. Gotta get that lox. And he doesn't like fish, but
for me, it's gotta be latkes. Obviously, specifically my mother's latkes.
Of course. Okay. I was going to ask if there was a specific.
Yeah, no other latke.
Okay.
Definitely, specifically my mother's latkes.
And I'm the stinky fish lady, so that's why.
It's not gefilte fish?
I'm not. That's the next step on my journey. If
you want stinky fish.
Yeah. I haven't reached that level yet.
And that is, I feel like gefilte fish is definitely, that's leveling up. That's a different ballgame.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, Carli Poisson and Aaron Josephs, thank you both so much for joining me. We are thrilled to have you with another Moishe Pod here in the Twin Cities, and you've got your events all over the TC Jufo calendar. So check out the calendar page and find out what great stuff they have going on. And we look forward to seeing you in person very soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking to us, Lottie. This is great.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jewfolk Podcast Network, a product of Jewfolk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.